Hey guys, so it says I'm live and it's showing my stream health as yellow, which is not the greatest, but it's not the worst. We've done red before. So hi, welcome. Today we are kind of doing a little bit of retribution. Recently I released a review of Marabu Aqua Ink graphics, and the review got kind of messed up in that my mixing was really bad, and I want to apologize for that. Hi, EYC. Good evening, or good morning. Wow. I'm good. How are you? So, I kind of wanted to take an opportunity to talk about these paints, to re-swatch them, and to maybe do not quite a full field test, but a little demonstration of these paints. So, normally on Fridays, I do something called Power Hour at 8 in the evenings, where I take requests, I do drawing, that sort of thing. And I've been away for 6 weeks. I haven't been able to do that. So this is kind of a little head nod to that. I know this time period is really weird. This is not my normal scheduled time period. I actually have some people evacuating to my apartment from Tropical Storm Barry, and the place is not going to be mine for the weekend. So I thought it would be better to just go ahead and do what I was going to do, and then not have to really worry about that, because you can't really control what tropical storms are going to do. So I would really appreciate it if you guys just kept Louisiana and the entire Gulf Coast in your thoughts this weekend. For a lot of people, this is really reminiscent of Hurricane Katrina. So hurricanes can be very triggering for people who live in that area. They certainly are very triggering for me, even though I live in Tennessee now and I don't really have to worry about that. I have a lot of family who I love in the Louisiana area. So just kind of keep them in your thoughts. So I have links to like everything in the description. I basically copied my show notes from that other video and pasted them in there. So if you don't normally check the description, please check the description. I have the colors we're going to be talking about. I have links to where you can buy everything in the description. So content like this is made possible by my wonderful Artnerds on Patreon. Their support, their encouragement allows me to continue making this sort of content. In the past, I used to hire an editor, and I just can't afford him anymore. He was way too expensive for what I was getting. So I've been editing all my videos myself, which is why the Marabu video was a little bit screwy. Just trying to juggle too much in too short a period. But if you like what I do and you want to see me continue doing it and you want to support it, you can join me over on Patreon. And I will drop a link really quick in the chat. Hey, oh, thank you, Joseph. I know you're doing this from the car, so I appreciate it. Joseph's actually on his way back to Nashville from Chicago. He went to go visit his brother. And I'd also like to mention my webcomic, 7-Inch Kara. You can read it at 7inchkara.tumblr.com or 7inchkara.com. And we have a really gorgeous guest comic by my friend Kabocha, who is the artist behind the comic Linked. And it is just so cute and so charming that I really hope you guys will check out her guest comic and also kind of check out 7-Inch Kara in general. So. And hey guys, I'm good. I'm a little embarrassed about the Marabu video, so like I'm really determined to do a better job with this. And I've been wanting to move a lot of my unboxing swatches to kind of a live format anyway, so this can be kind of a good test run. One of the reasons I don't do that is because I have to do a lot of research and I need the brain space to kind of organize my thoughts, and I can't do that if I'm also chatting. But I think having some element of like live demonstration could be great for people. So I'm actually impressed that so many people have showed up. 6. I was expecting we'd get 0 since I'm streaming at like 2 in the afternoon on a random Friday. But I am really grateful that you guys are here. It actually really cheers me up. So you guys can check out the original video. I will warn you, at about the 7:30 mark, the audio just goes bonkers bad. But that's where this swatch sheet here comes from. And we're just going to go ahead and kind of dive in to the Marabu paints. So I have the 6 color set, and I also bought an additional 3 colors. And I'd received, I think it's this color here. I'd received this color in like a random art snacks I bought. They were liquidating their stock, and I kind of liked what I saw and I wanted to try more of it. And so I ended up buying the McFloaty set, and I got it from, I think I got it from Amazon, but you can also get it on, this is not the right one. Let me see if I can find the right one. Aqua Ink. They may have gotten rid of it. Nope, here they are. So you can get them open stock on Dick Lick, or you can get them on Amazon, and I will drop, oh, I didn't even have the thing up. See, this is why usually it helps to have Joseph in the room, because he's like, hey, 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 you gotta put the thing up. So you can get them on Blick, or you can get them on Amazon, and I'll go ahead and drop the links in the chat. Oh, and it cut, there we go, okay. So this might be kind of an awkward stream, I guess, because I'm a little bit out of practice. So I appreciate you guys' patience, and my computer's being weird. Okay, sorry about that. I appreciate you guys' patience. Apparently my keyframes are being all screwy. I wonder if there's something I can do to fix that while we're streaming. Well, you guys let me know in the chat if you can see it, because for me right now, all I can see is this black screen. So, oh, you know what? I will quit playing the video and that'll help it at least a little bit. Okay, so we have 9 total colors here. I believe I'd have to check the description, which I'm going to do really quick. How many total colors are there is what I want to know. 14 total colors. They come in 15 milliliter bottles like this. They don't have an eyedropper, so I have some droppers here for today. They are water-based. They are watercolor ink. They are pigment based, so unlike the Dr. P.H. Martin's Radiant watercolors, they are pigment based. They're not dye based. Hi, an ink guy. They are naturally transparent, and they are Lightfast, being pigment based, although I would love to do some Lightfast testing with these. They're for use with brushes and drawing pins, and even once dry they will reactivate somewhat with water. So again, I have all this information in the description. So what we covered in the last video before my audio just went completely kablooey. Actually, give me a second. I'm gonna turn some things off and try to fix some things, because my computer is being really weird today. The audio is a little low. I can still hear you, but I had to crank it up a bit. Yeah, I'll turn it up. Sorry about that. There we go. Is that better? Because I mean, I know I'm loud. I know I'm loud. So like I always turn it down to compensate. So in our last video, the one that went kablooey, we did swatches using a grid. I tested for how likely they were to lift up. They're not particularly liftable. They're not as liftable as some of the other liquid watercolors I've tested. We also did some color over color layering to determine, you know, how well these layer and glaze, and then we did some mixes, and it's really this area here where the video cut out. So what I want to do for you guys today first is I want to we're going to do some swatches, and then we're going to do some color glazes, and then we're going to do some color mixing. And then I have kind of like a little, it's not really like a field test, but it's a little something that I wanted to paint for you guys, because one of my commenters, I think her name is Violet Bunny, asked me to start doing illustrations with my reviews. And I love that idea. The reason I don't is because I often treat my illustrations as tutorials and I make those into separate videos. But since we're doing a live stream, I thought we could, you know, take the time to do that. So I have a ceramic plate. I have several different brushes, and I have, I probably don't actually have enough droppers for, yeah, I'm one short. So I'm gonna go grab another dropper and I'll be back, because I don't want to pollute the colors. I also have a paper towel and a clean cup of water. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do my swatches in the same order as these. So I wanna have these somewhere on camera so you guys can see them. Okay. And since they're pigment based, we need to give them a really good shake just to kind of get the pigments in suspension again. So recently I recorded a vlog because people have been asking me, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Recently I recorded a vlog because people have been asking me to kind of get back into doing that. And I did. It's like a 40-minute long thing. And I'm kind of on the fence about whether or not I want to share it. Just because like that's kind of started making me anxious, I guess. Like it's nice that people care about my life, and I'm like really flattered, and I appreciate that people are interested and that they care. But like I have a problem with oversharing, tend to definitely overshare. And that kind of ties in with the My Life with ADHD series, because being someone with ADHD, sometimes I don't know where social boundaries are. And YouTube really encourages people to just share everything, even if it ruins their lives. And I'm not okay with doing that myself. So like for me, I've always kind of tried to err on the side of caution and erred on the side of being a little more private and protecting myself, because that's important to me. And so that's kind of why I don't necessarily like share vlogs anymore. Is not that my life is like super terrible, because it's not, but because I've had just kind of a rough year this year, and I don't want anything I say to be taken as unprofessional and cost me a job, even if I'm just talking about my life experiences. And like on a if I had like a steady job and I knew they didn't care one way or the other, then I would definitely be like talking about experiences. If you do it in kind of a neutral way and it's used to help educate other people, that shouldn't be something that can cost you a job. But when you work in the arts, sometimes anything can be a reason not to hire you, because it's so competitive. So you know, like I'm still underemployed. I'm still like, everything I do is basically contract work, and I'm very much at the mercy of people rehiring me again and again and again. So like I'm not really in a position where I can feel comfortable putting myself out there like that, because I don't have steady employment. So that's kind of why I haven't shared the vlog, is because I don't want anything I said in it to be taken as like I'm ungrateful for the opportunities that I have been given, because I'm coming from a place where like for the first 4 years I lived in Nashville, there weren't opportunities. Like I would go and try to pitch things, and people were not receptive to like libraries weren't receptive to comic classes, or they'd let me teach one and they'd take the materials and then never hire me again. So like I don't want to lose the progress that I've made improving my life because I said something on YouTube and it was taken the wrong way. And that's like a really legitimate fear I have right now. So that's why I'm kind of sitting on the vlog. I'm probably going to share it with my Artnerds, because I don't actually say anything I don't say anything unprofessional. I don't say anything inflammatory. I just don't want, I would rather somebody like ask me like, hey Becca, what did you mean about XYZ in that vlog? And people don't ask, they just act or don't act. You know, like people don't call you up and they're like, hey, so I saw your artist vlog and I was just wondering if you're talking about me. And I could be like, yeah, I was. Or I could be like, no, I'm actually doing this other thing with this other person, and I was actually talking about that. I'm sorry for the miscommunication. Like people don't give you that opportunity. So I just have to be really protective of my life. And there are things I can talk about, and I just kind of choose not to talk about because they make me sad. Like for example, I have a book pitch that's been like up and down, in and out. People like it, people don't like it. Like it's in limbo basically. And I don't talk about it because I don't want to jinx it. I'd really, really like that book to get picked up. I really believe in it. I think it'd be a great book. And yeah, so like I don't want to jinx it. Or like I just did a bunch of shows and they were all not great. Like the people were great, the people were nice, and the organizers were wonderful, but like the sales were really, really, really bad. And sometimes when you say, hey, you know, I had really bad sales at the show, people take it the wrong way. And generally, when I pay to be in a show, I don't care if they take it the wrong way because they need to fix their stuff. But like when the opportunity is free or when it was given to me, then I take that a little bit more seriously, and I don't want to do anything that might, like, I would rather talk to them privately about what I think can be improved about the show. And then sometimes when it comes to low sales, like, there's not anything the organizers did that was a problem. It was just people don't have money to spend. So I have a buzz. I'm going to check it because it might be Joseph being like, hey, your stream is dead. Oh, no. He's offering a dinner suggestion. So I will, sorry, Joseph, I'll respond to that later. I just wanted to make sure you weren't like, hey, your stream is dead, girl. All right, so I'm going to re-swatch these for you guys. I apologize about the color accuracy. It's not really perfect. And then my back studio light is out, which is why we have really harsh cast shadows. And I'm using a ceramic dish because you can reactivate liquid watercolors from a ceramic dish much more easily than you can from a plastic dish. So that is their color, lemon or citron. And these are much more finely milled than the Hydrus watercolors, which you guys can kind of see in the background. That is Rosetta, which is kind of like a chartreuse green. And I definitely plan on doing comparative swatches of the Hydrus. And these actually kind of remind me of the Bombay India inks. And I have a few of those. I can go dig those up too if you guys are interested in that. This is Mint. So these are very saturated. They go down very cleanly. Like, these kind of remind me of printer colors. When I say printer colors, I mean, I do kind of also mean like inkjet printers, but I mean like printmaking printer colors where you might be dealing with CMY and K, which would be the same for printers, but like, I'm talking about like screen printing. Next, we have Violet Dunkel. Always love that word. I'm not even joking. Hey, Catherine. Dunkel. It means like double dark or double. Dunkel. Then we have Ultramarine Dunkel. Next we have Cyan. And also, like, I do feel kind of guilty not telling you guys about what's going on because I think being honest about what life is like as an artist and talking honestly about the things that I'm dealing with is part of my job. And so next we have Magenta, and like part of being a teacher. So like I'm caught in this fine line of like I'm not making enough money. I can't even afford my vet bills, right? Like I'm not in a position to be alienating employers. I'm not in a position to be unprofessional. I'm not even necessarily always in a position to stand up for my rights as an artist because I need the paying work, you know, more than I need. I don't know. Anyway, so like, but I feel like I'm cheating you guys, but then I feel like I'm being cheated because like I can't make my own ends meet. So like, do I really owe people honesty if I can't even take care of myself? And then finally we have black. So that's just basic swatches of all 9 of the colors I own. They also have a few others. They have 14 total colors, so there's 5 colors I'm missing. And one of them's a brown, another is another purple. I don't intend on purchasing the rest of the colors, not because I don't love these colors, but because I have so many watercolors in my collection. I just can't really justify owning even more. So I'm gonna go switch out my water, and then we're going to do gradiated swatches. I did not expect so many people would be able to make it on an afternoon with like no notice. So I'm really glad to see you guys. I missed y'all. I was in Luling for 3 weeks, and I was in Ann Arbor for not a full week, but almost a week before that. And just none of that was really like conducive to doing streaming stuff. So I missed you guys. Actually, I'm glad I decided to do this afternoon stream. I was gonna postpone and not do any stream until like things were a little bit more settled, but I'm glad I took advantage of this afternoon and decided to do a stream for you guys. What do you guys think of these kind of live demonstrations where I end up like rambling about things? See, we don't need artist vlogs. I'll just ramble. So you guys can kind of see these colors are not particularly sedimenting. They're pretty clean. You're not really getting other colors when you blend them out. Managed to get the Zen Pop. You streamed that for me, and I just commented. And that was so relaxing. Well, that was definitely, it was both relaxing and maddening. Because you do things differently than I do, and I'm a control freak. So, like, part of me is like, no! And part of me is also, like, really loving seeing how somebody does it differently. Oh, you only just woke up. Well, hopefully you got a good night's sleep. Okay, next, I'm going to have to try and conserve room because I'm running out of space. Also, I don't think their ultramarine is really a true ultramarine. It's a little bit more blue than I'm used to. The cyan is a really nice color because it's kind of like a phthalo cyan, and it trends a little bit green. Now, I have not tried reconstituting these colors. I actually left some in a ceramic palette with the intention of coming back to that. But honestly, that's probably collected so much dust that I need to like clean it out. Yeah. That's good. That's what I always wanted the power hours to be. And that's why I was always like, if you guys have any questions. But like sometimes people don't know what they want to ask, so I get it. It like puts you guys on the spot somewhat, which is not my intention. And then finally, black. So my disappointment with what I have is that there's no like yellow ochre in what I have, and I don't have a brown. So it makes it harder for me to do skin tones because it requires more color mixing. Okay, so that is just kind of the basic swatches. I want to do a color wheel next. So I'm going to move this over to the side, and then I'm going to replace my water. And all of the swatching that I've been doing today has been on cotton rag paper. All the painting I'm doing today is going to be on cotton rag paper. So just a friendly reminder that if you like what I do, and you want to help me do it and you're in a position to do so, you can support my work by joining me over on Patreon. Okay, so here is some arches. We were just painting on Fluid 100. This is arches. I'm gonna go replace my cup of water. And don't worry, I'm going to show you guys everything I swatched one more time. before we say goodbye. So just because I'm just putting it aside to dry, I'm not putting it aside like, okay, and we're done with that now. Okay, so I'm going to do a color wheel next. And I'm also going to put photos of everything on my Instagram because I know the color accuracy in my room right now is not great. And that's kind of an important thing when you're doing watercolors. And it's World Watercolor Month, so that kind of makes our timing really good. I hope you guys are doing at least one fun thing for World Watercolor Month. This is my first fun thing for World Watercolor Month, but I have lots of plans for this month, so I have a lot of good stuff scheduled. Now, next week, I'm actually doing my Dollar Tree review week, and it is cram-packed. Like, some of those days, I have 3 videos a day, which is not optimal, but it's what we got. I mean, I really pulled out all the stops for the Dollar Tree review. So hopefully you guys will check that out, and I hope you guys enjoy it. There are watercolor products in that review, and you guys can see sneak peeks of the field test demonstration where I kind of put everything to the test and see how well they all work. You can see that over on my Instagram. This is not really a wheel so much as it is a strange oblong shape. But I hope you guys can see how bright and vibrant these colors are. Now, usually with a color wheel, you would select, say, red, yellow, and blue, and then blend from that. And I'm not really doing that. Ooh, that was a mistake. Got too much purple, and that's usually why I will blend out with water a little bit so that we maintain like a pure color. Okay, so we have our color bean. You guys can kind of see how bright these colors are. So I'm also going to do some color layering. We're going to start with yellow. And what I'm going to do is these are going to be wet over dry blends. So I'm applying the color, and then I'm going to let that dry and apply the next color on top of it. Rainbow bean! It's like a magic bean. A rainbow magic bean. And I'm trying not to pollute my colors, but they are getting a little bit polluted. Since these are big open wells, they're also evaporating pretty quickly from these. So maybe we will get to test out to see whether or not they reactivate well, because hydrous does not reactivate well. It gets chunky and gross. It gets a skin on it. So with hydrous, you want to use what you need and clean off your palette. Like, don't apply. It's not like tube watercolors where you can kind of reactivate it. You don't really want to do that with hydrous. But I don't know if that's something we can or would even want to do with the Graphix inks. Now, I've tried a few other products in the Marabu lineup. I've tried their crayons. I've tried their they're called pigment markers, but they're actually dye-based, as I found out after I contacted them, and they were like, no, that's a mistake. I've tried those things. What else have I tried? I've tried a couple of other things, and just generally, I'm not the biggest fan of Marabu products. These are probably my favorite. I really love how bright and intense, how saturated the colors are, how clean the colors are. Even when I pollute them a little bit, they're still pretty clean. They don't really get muddy. So of the Marabu products I've tried, these are some of my favorites. What am I missing? I'm missing a purple. Rainbow bean. And then while those are drying, I'm going to do some mixes. So let's go for an orange. So I'm going to take some of our yellow. I'm going to mix it on my craft mat, clean off my brush because I'm trying not to pollute my colors too much. Grab a little bit of red, mix the two together. That seems very red. So let's grab some more yellow. Okay, so that is our red plus yellow. So we have a decent orange. I'm going to add some more yellow in. I always kind of call this like a ketchup and mustard kind of orange because it's definitely orange, but it's maybe not as high chroma an orange. That's probably because my yellow is getting watered down by this point. I'm gonna take a moment. Let's move this out of the way. Let's refill. This is why I kept the droppers. And this gets all over the place too. Like as it bubbles, it's sending out little droplets. Wonder if these would be good for like suminagashi, like Japanese paper marbling. I wonder if you could get them to very gently float on the surface. Okay, let's mix some yellow with cyan. Oh, you know what? I figured out what I'm doing wrong. It's been so long since I've recorded anything, I forgot that I have these backlights that are supposed to combat my shadows. It's like magic. Okay, so we have cyan and yellow. That's a really nice, pretty blue-green color. Let's add some more yellow to that. So basically what I'm looking for when I do this is I'm looking for clean mixes. How cleanly do these colors mix? Because sometimes super saturated colors do not mix very well. They don't mix cleanly. You end up with mud. But these, that's one of the other things I really like about these is they are very clean mixing. My concern would be for the brown because I have found that browns when it comes to like liquid watercolors tend to be kind of gross looking. And that was with the cyan. So while I'm thinking about it, I'm just going to do a little color key. So we have red. We have yellow. We have cyan. We have yellow. I definitely want to do magenta and cyan because I'm trying to do somewhat CMYK mixes since the C, the Y, and the C, the Y, the M, and the K are pretty prominent in this set. Okay, so now we're going to do magenta and cyan. So we have our magenta. And there's our cyan. Okay, so that's still very cyan influenced. Let's grab some more magenta. Now it's getting a little more purple. There we go. Ooh, that's actually a very pretty purple. It's very similar, in fact, to the purple that we have. And we'll grab even more. And we get kind of a red violet. Are there any color combinations you want to see me mix since we're doing this live and I've got you guys? Maybe we could do ultramarine and magenta next. That's going to give us an even more true purple. And something I really like about these craft sheets is I can just wipe them down and then paint on top of them. I don't really have to do, I do usually clean them after a session, but I don't have to spend a lot of time cleaning them. Okay, so that's our, that's kind of our ultramarine color. So that is already much more purple just from the get-go. Mix in some more magenta. So honestly, maybe you don't even really need, I would always say have a blue influence, a green influence blue and a red influence blue. So to me, having cyan and also having ultramarine is important, but the ultramarine in this set is already kind of a cyan sort of ultramarine, so that could have maybe been skipped. Different browns, red, oh, I can try. I can try to mix some browns with these. We'll see what we get. So when you're mixing browns, you're really aiming for mixing complementary colors or split complementary colors. So you're either going to get kind of a gray or you're going to get kind of a brown. So we're going to kind of start with the brown everybody thinks of when they think of brown, and that's going to be red and green. And we're going to go with this green first. And I'll just mix them together. Since I'm not super familiar with these, we'll see what we get. So this is the scarlet and the green, and we end up with actually a very serviceable brown. It's kind of like a sepia almost. So let's try mixing more green this time and see what we get. Okay, so we get kind of a very cool sort of forest green. Then we're going to mix more red. So I have a separate little area of red over here, and I'm just mixing in a little bit more green instead. So we end up with kind of a gray brown, which there's nothing wrong with kind of a gray brown. And I'll just mark what colors we did. And of course you can also get browns with like orange and blue. Well, that's really going to give you more like a Payne's gray, but depending on the proportion you mix it in, if you have it way more orange influenced or even orange and purple, you can get a brown. What manga are you reading? Let me just toss these to the side real quick. Sure, I can do a green color after I do the browns. I need to switch out my water anyway. So next I'm going to try doing it with magenta and the same green and see if we can't get something that's a little bit warmer. Very chill weekend planned, yeah. Ooh, I don't know. I don't know. That does not look like it's going to be green. It's actually a really pretty purple. Okay, well, let's try adding more green to it and see what we get. And let's try adding more magenta. Okay, so that's more like a neutral tint than it is a brown. I actually find mixing browns to be a little bit difficult. It's not my strongest mixing skill. So I'm gonna keep trying. I'm just saying it's gonna take me a while to like wander over in that direction. Okay, let's try again. Let's do purple and let's make an orange first. So we're gonna take a little bitty bit of the scarlet and we're gonna take a lot of yellow and we're gonna mix those first so we kind of have an orange. That's a good enough orange. Then we're gonna take just a little bit of purple and that is a lot, still too much purple. Me too, an ink guy. I don't mind doing it though. Like I feel like this is all good experimentation and practice. Okay, so now we added a lot of orange. That's more of a brown than what we started with, but not really what I'm looking for. And we'll take even more orange. Okay, so we can kind of almost get a burnt sienna. So usually when we're talking about like what is your ideal mix, what is your ideal pan selection for watercolors, I always include a brown. I always include like sepia and then burnt sienna or burnt umber because I don't like mixing browns. I don't like mixing purples either, believe it or not. Although you can get decent purples mixing ultramarine and magenta, not every set's gonna have those. Okay, so, all right, what if we did blue, and here we have the ultramarine blue, and that's gonna be too much, but that's okay. The blue, and then a lot of yellow. We'll mix it over here, and then we'll kind of create a midpoint mix. That's gonna give us green. But it's a different green than the greens we're working with. And then what if we mixed in some of the red? So basically we're mixing like orange and blue. That's going to be too much red. But this is the color we get. Let's mix in some more green. That's the color we get. Let's mix in some more green. See, we're getting a lot of like grays, but I'm having a hard time hitting brown. So you guys suggest maybe what I should mix to try and get brown. If we mix all the colors, we actually get this really pretty kind of like nighttime sky color. Now it depends on what proportion you mix things in. Okay, so this was orange and purple, so I'll mark it. And then this was green and red, so I'll mark it. I'm doing this in case I come across a color combination I really like. I want to use it during my field test. I know how to mix it. So I'm basically making recipes, even though I'm not including the proportions. So I feel like this was our most successful brown. And even then, it's still kind of muted, not impressive. So we're going to grab some of this really light green. And we're going to mix it with the scarlet red. Oh, that's too much, but that's okay. Swatch it. Mix in more green. Okay, all right. It's actually getting orange because this green has so much yellow in it, but that's all right. We're learning here. Lots and lots more green. And we get kind of a yellow ochre. So at least we've hit, okay, we've hit sepia, we've hit burnt sienna, kinda, and we've hit yellow ochre. And that was the green with the scarlet. So I wonder what's going to happen when we do that same green with the magenta. I'm still waiting for these little swatches up at the top to dry. So let's grab our green first. And then we're going to grab our magenta. And maybe we should try doing that green with a purple as well. So there's our green and magenta. Actually, that's a pretty color. That's not brown, but it's a pretty color. We'll grab some more green. Still a pretty color. Not the color we're looking for though. More green. This is kind of a brown, kind of a brown. Why am I having such a hard time getting brown? Maybe I do need their brown, but I'm not going to buy their brown because I have a whole bunch of Hydrus watercolors. And if I have to, I will just use Hydrus instead. Because I just can't justify buying it. Trying to reteach myself to understand that I don't have to have every color I think I need in every brand. I could use other brands. And if people don't like it, then they can get over it. Okay, so we did the light green and the magenta just now. We were going to do purple and the magenta, but I want to mark this so that I can mix that again if I want to. So magenta and then green. So I guess there's some colors I think we could skip if you're buying these open stock. I think we could definitely skip some colors. I think getting a brown, at least to use as a base, if you don't have the Hydrus or any other liquid watercolors that are compatible with these, that's going to be a thing you need to do is get a brown. Because, like, look, we've tried a bunch of different color combinations. Some of them are pretty much guaranteed to make brown. These still don't make brown. So we're going to do one more attempt because I'm not anything if I'm not very, very, very stubborn. Also, though, this has been beneficial because I've found a bunch of really pretty color mixes. And then purple. I don't know what we're going to get. Do it up here. Okay, that's kind of like a neutral tint color. That's kind of pretty. See, we're getting a lot of really pretty colors, just none of them are brown. Or I guess none of them are what I would think of as brown. Okay, we added a lot more green. Okay, now we're kind of getting like in that olive territory. Add a little bit more green. We're going to end up with an olive green because of this, which is okay with me. It's not a brown. This is kind of a brown. Okay, and then we have olive green. So that is purple and Rosetta. And I don't think, have I done purple with, no I haven't. I have not done purple with dark green. So that's another one I'm going to try. And this is something I would normally probably time lapse just because you guys don't need to see me do it till I get it. But it's also kind of fun doing it live because for me, I have to go through all this anyway. Like this is a lived experience for me, whether or not other people see it in fast motion. Okay, so now we're doing, they call this mint. This is not mint. Mint is like a very light color. It's not it. Okay. All right, so that is dark green with a lot of purple. Where am I going to put you? I guess up here. Ooh, that's pretty though. And then let's add more of the green. I didn't really expect that to result in a brown. but I've tried like all of the known brown mixes and I'm not really getting them. So I thought I would try it. And we also have black, and I usually don't like adding black because I just don't. There's not necessarily anything wrong with it, but when I paint Cara pages, I will add like neutral tint, or I will add Payne's Gray, or I will add blue, and I only use black for like Pancake's Fur. So like I only use, and even then that's like a layer of black, and it's usually like a warm influence black, just because I feel like black has a tendency in my stuff to deaden things. But we have not done anything with black, so we'll try it. Now, what would be, I think the best course of action would be to take a successful known mix and then add black to it, or one of our more successful known mixes. So we'll do green and red. Actually, you know what? Let's try doing green, red, and magenta and see how that looks, and then decide if we want to add black. And even an unsuccessful attempt can still be really fruitful. Ah, no. I think this is too blue. And we're getting some really pretty colors, but we're just not really getting brown. Instead of black, I prefer to use a super dark purple. Actually, well, that's going to throw even more blue into the mix. Yeah, I know what you mean now. Just anything that adds a color to it, a color and is dark. Let's try using some of the light green. See what we get. Okay, that's actually a brown. Okay, so I don't usually like doing like 5 color mixes to get a single color, but that actually worked. So that is magenta, scarlet, what they call mint, but it's a dark green, so mint in heavy air quotes, and then Reseda, which is like a chartreuse green. And I'm not really getting a good. Okay, so what if I did, see, y'all started me on a dark path. What if we did, because when you mix scarlet and magenta together, it kind of gives you like a true red, and I'll swatch that so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And that's great if like you don't have a nice middle of the road red. So see, it kind of just gives you a regular red. And then we're going to add a little bit of the green to it and see if we can get rid of like the middleman, or if we need the dark green. Okay, it's not enough. I mean, it gives you something. It's an ochre. And it's not a bad ochre either. It's actually maybe a little cooler than the ochre we had here. So if you can't mix a cool enough ochre, add a little bit of magenta and then add a bunch of light green. Let's add some more red to it. Okay, so almost like an Indian red. Almost. That, I think, is what I don't like. Is that I could not mix what I thought of as like a satisfying brown with these. And normally I can. I prefer using brown pre-mixed as like a convenience color or as a single pigment color. Like I always have browns in my palette. In fact, I feel uncomfortable with palettes that don't have any browns. Like I'm just like, I don't know what to do with this. But I chose not to buy a brown, so that's on me. Okay, so these are still drying. I might go put them out in the window. And let's see. I need to change out my water, let this dry, and I kind of want to do a comparison for you guys between the Hydrus watercolors and these watercolors. Do you guys want me to pull out the Radiant watercolors as well? Those are dye-based. that was Arch's watercolor paper. Now we have Blick Premier, their cotton rag watercolor paper, because when I do these kind of tests, I have found that we get the best possible results if we're using cotton rag paper. Cotton rag paper forgives a lot of watercolor sins. So even though it's more expensive and it's not necessarily what everyone else is going to be using, when I'm testing watercolors and I want to be able to give an honest opinion, I do try to put it on the best kind of paper I can afford to put it on. I used to use a lot of cellulose paper because it's much more affordable, but I feel like this more accurately reflects the qualities in those watercolors. So I'm gonna clean up my area just a little bit, get things reorganized, get a drink of water, and change out my water. Hey, Allie, good afternoon. Not super great. Allie asked how my trip was. Not great. Hey, B, good afternoon. So right now I'm just kind of trying to pick out colors that are sort of comparable to what I have out, so we can do kind of like side by side swatches now. I don't have a complete collection of these, so I'm just kind of picking from what I got. So it's not going to be like a one-to-one perfect comparison. Actually, I should grab the Hansa Yellow Light instead. And I have a couple of browns. So the raw umber is pretty bad, if I remember correctly. I also have red oxide, and I have raw sienna, and I have yellow ochre, because I lean really heavily on those kind of colors. So I'm going to grab those. Probably not, because there's going to be some people staying in my apartment, so I just don't really feel comfortable like holding myself up in my studio for 2 hours and doing that also. And then carbon black. So this kind of makes up for that, kind of. Let's see. What are you? You're a vermilion hue. You're actually closer to what I'm looking for. Okay, I think that's... And I'm also going to keep these on hand. Whoa, nice, Tyra. I guess you got all of them. Okay, sorry about that. So I have over here my Hydrus swatches from my Hydrus video, and I have over here the Marabu swatches. So obviously I have a larger collection of the Hydrus than I do of the Marabu, which is kind of part of the reason why I didn't buy too many of the Marabu. And you guys can kind of see that the Hydrus, they are much thicker. They're more likely to sediment. The particle size is much larger, but the colors are still really, really bright and vibrant. If you give me a second, I'll grab the field test I did for the Hydrus. That's going to be coming live sometime this month. And this is what the resulting field tests look like. And I promise my camera is not doing it justice. In fact, the scan I have on Twitter is not doing it justice. It is really, really bright and vibrant in real life. So Hydrus watercolors, if you use them fresh, you get really bright saturated colors. Yeah, I mean, that's why they're worth 50 cents. You can get all of like Escaflowne's manga for that. So what I want to do next is some one-to-one swatches with these. Yeah. Well, also Hydrus has the dropper, so you don't have to have droppers on the side, but the graphics are much cheaper than the Hydrus. So I'm going to start by doing a line of Hydrus. No, I'm sorry, graphics. Not even thinking. So that is lemon. Next is Reseda. How do I want to do this? I think I want to do it like this. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. All right. So kind of just filling in holes in the collection. Then we have mint. Then I'm going to do cyan. Then I'm going to do ultramarine, and I need to be mindful of the space on the page. I'm probably leaving too much room between layers. Next is violet dunkel. And sometimes libraries just do book sales to help raise money for new books and to get rid of books that need to be replaced. Then is magenta. So I'm actually really glad they're selling the manga instead of just pulping it, because some libraries will just pulp stuff like manga because they don't really have much respect for the readership. Then is vermilion, and then finally is black. And then I'm going to go switch out my water. I am going to do, or I am planning on doing like a regular power hour next Friday, right? Is that right? And then I have a class either on Saturday or Sunday. I have to double check. Okay, so that is all of the graphics swatched. Oh, go for it. And then we're going to dive into Hydrus. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave some space. And these actually, they do come in two sizes, but the size you're the most often going to see are the bigger bottles. So I'm going to do just a drop. Okay, so that is Hansa Yellow Light. Next I'm doing, I don't have any light green, so I'm doing Viridian Green. No. And these sediment out really badly, especially if they're really old, so you really need to shake them up way better than I'm doing. And please make sure your cap is on tightly when you do that. So this one has some chunkies in it. Then we have turquoise blue. So I think I mentioned this earlier. I'm not sure. I'll go over it again. That's my brain with some ADHD going on. I was in Louisiana to teach 6 comic classes, and then for Destrehan Comic Con or Destrehan Library Comic Con, they've recently changed the name because apparently Wizard World has a big old trademark on a commonly used phrase like Comic Con, which you would think the US government would be wise to, but they're not. Oh no, Tyra, just send the markers. Please don't send anything else. I've gotten in so much trouble for having too much stuff. In fact, I am doing a massive art supply purge because I just don't have room anymore. And I'm going to be getting rid of a bunch of books as well. For the most part, I've been buying books on Kindle because I just don't have space. And I'm moving, hopefully, I say in the next year, but I'm kind of hoping to move back to Louisiana by March so Joseph and I can get married. And I do not want to bring books. So please, I appreciate the thought, but I don't have any more room. So that was blue ultramarine. Next is ultramarine red violet. So we don't really have, so these are much darker than these are just kind of straight out of the bottle. So the thing about Hydrus is Hydrus isn't really designed to be used at full saturation for the most part. I mean, this would be like your final layer, adding your darkest low lights kind of thing. It's not designed. This saturation is not how they're designed to be used. And I don't know if this saturation is how these are designed to be used, because this is actually like if you were doing flat watercolor work, these would be perfect as is. Date. I haven't done any of the planning, and I am not a planning person. So that was ultramarine red violet. If I could hire a wedding, yeah. Well, Joseph and I have been together for, I hope, Joseph, if you mind me talking about this, please like text me and be like, don't, because this involves him, and I try to be respectful of people who are not part of this channel's privacy. We've been together for 10 years. We've been engaged for at least 4 years, and there were family reasons why we could not get married sooner. And finally, those family reasons have started to resolve. Basically, my mom threatened to disown me and would not let me see my brother. And she and my brother are all the family that talk to me. Well, she, my brother, and my mom's sister are all the family that really talk to me in the world. And I don't have a lot of friends, so I couldn't really, I couldn't do that. Like, I couldn't trade my mom for my fiance. Like, I couldn't make a decision, right? And it was a really bad position to be in, and I've gotten so much flack for it over the years. People who don't even know me being like, well, you should get married, he's a good man. And it's like, you don't even know my mom, you don't even know my life. My dad died a few years ago. Like, you don't even know. So I wish you wouldn't say stuff because it's really painful. But that's, y'all don't want to hear that kind of stuff. Anyway, yeah, I'm excited. And my mom's finally like, yeah, I'll help you. And I'll go dress shopping with you. And, but the thing is, like, I think all the planning, or a lot of the planning is going to fall on my shoulders. Mostly because Joseph is laid back and he's just like, whatever is good. And it's like, yeah, I'm also kind of like a whatever is good kind of person. But there's certain things, because I only plan on getting married one time in my life, and otherwise I will just be single forever. Like, there's certain things I want to do a certain way. So, like, certain things do need to be planned, and, like, you can't just, like, roll up at, like, a park and have your wedding there. Like, the cops will come shut you down. So, yeah, there's still, like, things to be done. And if I could hire a wedding planner who was just like a reasonable, sane person, who wasn't one of those people who are like, hey, you have to have the biggest and best wedding ever because all your friends have to be so impressed with your life choices, then I would just hire someone and be like, hey, I want the wedding in Louisiana. We want these foods. We want this music. We want this band who we've been friends with since we got together. I would do that. Yeah, I'm so relieved. My life has gotten like 100 times better since that kind of resolved itself. So yeah, now we just got to plan a wedding. Which I can barely plan a birthday party. And I appreciate the offer, Allie. If you're willing to help plan a wedding in Louisiana, I will take the help. All right, I'm going to go over the colors because like clearly me talking about wedding stuff is not the part of this video. So from top to bottom, we have Hansa Yellow Light, Viridian Green, Turquoise Blue, Ultramarine, Ultramarine Red Violet, Quinacridone Magenta, Vermilion Hue, and then Carbon Black. And these are not one-to-one swatches. They're not meant to be one-to-one swatches. So I'm going to go clean out the water, and then I'm going to do some blended swatches. And I keep like acting like I'm going to turn off the camera like I'm recording and not streaming. Woo! Siren, hi, welcome. All right, let's do some blending. We're gonna start with the hydrous because I already have those out, and then I can. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to kind of water them down a little bit so you guys can see how the colors change. Yeah, I was actually, when I was in Louisiana, I was actually hoping to get some wedding planning done, like at least go try on dresses or something, because I know what I want. And it's not really a traditional wedding dress at all. It's like a T-length dress because I'm 5'3", I'm pretty short. I've never liked how I look in full-length dresses, so I wanted something more manageable, and we just didn't really have time. Between like I was teaching, and then my younger brother lives with my mom still, and he has special needs, and then my aunt lives with my mom and she takes care of my aunt, and my aunt has lupus, so she definitely has special needs. We just didn't really have time. And that's also one of my concerns about getting married is my mom kind of takes care of everybody, and my solution to that for the most part is to either help her or fade into the background. So like I would really like her help in this. That's kind of a big thing for a lot of people, and it's one of the reasons why I kind of postponed it, because like in American culture for the most part it's really important to have your parents involved, and my dad's gone so he can't walk me down the aisle, so it was really important to me to have my mom part of that. And like she's like, well, you're not the one, you're not prioritizing it. I would do it if you prioritize it. And it's like, but my aunt just broke her hip, and like other important things keep happening, and we've never had this like, hey, okay, now we're gonna work on this kind of moment. And as somebody who has trouble planning things on her own, or important things, I have a lot of trouble planning important things on my own. I really don't want to plan it by myself. Oh, that's awesome. But you guys had a place to get married. That was like the big one. That's the big problem here. I even suggested, because Joseph's parents have some property and I have some property up in Franklinton. I was like, well, we could do it in Franklinton, and then we're not paying, you know. I had a friend get married at a museum, and her big expense was getting married at the museum. And it was, she spent like $20K on her wedding. And I'd rather put that money in a house. So I don't want to spend a bunch of money on like a venue. So like I was like, we could get married at one of these two properties. And my mom's just like, no, you know, Father Francis, who's the parish priest, and he's a family friend, like he's not going to be able to make that ride. And it's like, it's a 45-minute ride and somebody else could drive him. No, he can't make that ride. So it's like, even though my mom's like, do whatever you want, it's your wedding, you're 33, don't worry about what other people think, she's also very much like, no, you can't do that because that's not how it's done. And I just want to cry. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that now. Sorry. this is not an appropriate time to talk about that anyway, right? Okay, so these are swatched. I'm going to clean these up, and then we're going to swatch these, and I'm also going to replace that cup of water. No, it's okay. It's just part of life. Like, where I was last year at this time of year, I am so much further in this regard than where I was last year. So I just have to be grateful that, like, my life is changing, even if it's hard to see that sometimes. And things have never, ever come easy for me. So, like, I am used to having to, like, fight and struggle for things. So it makes sense that this is the same way. All right, so I'm just working with the colors that are in this palette and blending them out as well, but I don't have as much room. So Initial D is on Prime Free, like their Comixology Prime Free manga, whatever. I don't know. I don't know the official name. I don't get paid by Amazon to like show their stuff, so I don't have to know their official name. And I really liked the music, but I wasn't necessarily like really understanding talk. It's kind of like Fully Cooley, where like it just never did it for me. Like I respect that other people like it, but I don't know why. I can't get it. Anyway, I'm reading Initial D, and I like the manga a bit better. At least I've only read the first volume, so I like it a little bit better. Even though I kind of feel like he's just completely impossible to read as a person. Like his motivations are just like maybe girls, and that's it, but probably not. I guess that's kind of the point. Like I'm also reading Beck, and I feel like the main character in Beck, his motivations are much more understandable. He's like this kid who doesn't really know what he wants from life. He doesn't really have a personality. He doesn't really have any set goals until he starts playing guitar, and then he kind of finds his reason for living. And Welcome to the Ballroom is very similar. And I wish these comics wouldn't find, I mean, so is Bakuman. I wish these comics wouldn't make like the female love interest like the central crux of why these guys get into these things, because people pick up hobbies all the time. So you don't need like a flimsy female character to justify why these teenage boys are discovering these passions. Okay, so these here, the graphics liquid watercolors, they're a little bit less saturated than the Hydrus watercolors. They're definitely a little bit less or a little more finely milled, a little less granulating. You do get some good color movement. I think these are more designed to be worked at full strength, like that's more of an option than the Hydrus watercolors, which are really designed to be watered down and mixed like that. So I do have a Hydrus unbox and swatch video that's already up, and it's actually decently edited. So I do recommend that if you guys are interested in that you check that out. I'm going to swatch the browns that I own really quick just to show you guys, because I really struggled with mixing browns with Hydrus, and then somehow I managed to get water drops. So I'll clean that up really quick. It's, oh man, I hate that trope, like especially with Bakuman, where he doesn't need the voice actor girlfriend, whatever. Like she doesn't even need to exist. And I'm not one to be like, let's get rid of all female characters in manga. Like that is not me at all. But like when it's just a stick figure character to justify why this kid is willing to sacrifice a lot, I don't need that. Like his best friend, well, became his best friend. He was a writer. He was invested in writing without Aya one way or the other. And Aya ends up supporting his goals, and I'm fine with that. But I really hated how they wrote, oh, I forget his name. It starts with an M, the boring one, the artist. I really hate how she was the motivation when he had an uncle who was a mangaka and he really liked his manga. Like, why can't that be the motivation? And Welcome to the Ballroom, like, he kind of follows a girl in for ballroom classes, but it really quickly ceases to be about her, and it just becomes about him discovering a passion for things. There we go. That's it. The refrigerator female character. I mean, at least she's not like literally jammed in a fridge or murdered. She does get to still exist to an extent, but I don't need it. In Initial D, I don't need Natalie, like, at all. Like, and I'm sure she has her own rationale, but there aren't other female characters. He doesn't even have a mom. So, like, to me, it just feels like the one female character. She's complicated, and she definitely has her own issues, but, like, do we need her in this manga? Oh, Welcome to the Ballroom is great. It's so beautifully drawn, too. On the flip side, though, I really like Again by Mitsuru Kubo, I think is her name. It's the woman who did the character designs for Yuri on Ice, and she also does the manga Moteki. And I like those. Actually, I like her manga way better than I like Yuri on Ice. Not that there's anything wrong with Yuri on Ice. It's just not. I don't know. Didn't do it for me the way it did it for everyone else. But anyway, in Again, the main character is kind of like this loner dude who's afraid of other people, or like just shy and distrustful of other people. He doesn't see any value in himself, and like he gets sent back in time, and he ends up joining the Oedan, Ouedan, Oedan, which is like a male cheerleader club, which is run by like this very forceful female personality. And I really like that because she's an important character. Her motivations are clear. She's really passionate about this club. Her passion is infectious. Like, she's a fully fleshed out character. So like that's kind of like a reversal. Like, I think it can be done well, but I don't think Initial D does it well, and I don't think Bakuman did it well, and I don't think I think Welcome to the Ballroom did it acceptably. Okay, so I'm going to do, over here, I'm going to do a little bit of intermixability. So this is some graphics, and I'll grab some of the, ooh, that's a pretty color there. And then I'll grab some of their, what color? Let's go with their quote-unquote mint green. So they seem to mix okay. I mean, really the true test would be layering it and testing it, but we're getting really nice color play over here. And like that magenta is really very brilliant. I have friends who swear by Orin. I'm not a fan of the "you're so different, you're the only girl, welcome." Also, I read Boys Over Flowers in high school, so like for me, Boys Over Flowers is, and I won't say it did it better because I think actually Orin did it better, because Boys Over Flowers has a lot of really problematic stuff in it that gets treated like, oh, this is just a normal relationship, this is okay, whereas Orin doesn't have quite those issues. So it wasn't for me, but I think it has value and I think it's well done. How about that? Yeah, these seem pretty intermixable. Again, though, really the only way to tell would be to do like a full field test piece and really see how that goes. Ah, that's going to be a mess. I have not read Say I Love You. I think that's a newer one. I read a lot of like seinen and josei these days, and not necessarily as much shoujo anymore. Like, I hear The Ancient Magus' Bride is amazing and that I need to read it or watch it, and I just haven't. It's in the National Library, so I could check it out on Overdrive, and I just haven't made time for it quite yet. Okay, so I think they're actually pretty intermixable. Again, the only way I would definitively be like, these are really great together, they're very intermixable, is if I did like a full field test and kind of put it through its paces. But it definitely seems like they would play well together, especially on like a cotton rag paper, which is what I have right here. Okay, so I'll set this off to the side to dry, and I'm going to clean up my the Hydrus watercolors, and then I'm going to do some layer testing over those swatches we put down a little while ago. So unless you have any further questions about the Hydrus watercolors, I'm going to put those away. No, I appreciate it, but I really, really, really have too much stuff. So the Radiant, because they're dye-based, they're not going to be Lightfast at all. The Hydrus are supposed to be pretty Lightfast. They do have Lightfast information on the bottle itself. Oh, thank you for dropping in. And Guy, it was good to see you. So the Lightfastness does depend on the color, but they're pigment-based, so they're going to be more Lightfast than the dye-based stuff. Oh, hi, Zargo Hunter. Oh, you're very welcome, Tyra. The graphics watercolor inks are also probably going to be more Lightfast than the Radiant watercolors. Sorry, losing my train of thought. Apologize for that. I would really, really like to do Lightfast testing at home. When they do Lightfast testing at companies like Daniel Smith, they actually have a machine that can simulate like 100 years worth of light exposure. I don't have that. I do have a plan for it though, and if you head on over to patreon.com/natosoup, you'll see what I have in mind. That's my $500 community goal. So once I get up to $500 a month, then I could actually afford to do that, because it's kind of expensive and requires a lot of art supplies. It requires a lot of time and checking and scanning and that kind of stuff. So it's a pretty high goal, but I have faith that we can hit it. Okay, some of these are still wet. Why? I guess I will skip the wet ones. Bum, 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 bum. So basically I'm kind of replicating these layer tests here just to see how these colors look when layered wet over dry. I was actually going to do a few more colors too. So I'm just doing a recreation of this and I'm going to narrate it as I go. So that is magenta over lemon. We're going to do cyan over lemon. And they seem to reconstitute a little bit better than, I mean, they do. I don't know if you guys can see this, so I'll twist it. It does get a little bit goopy and gummy here in the palette where it's kind of dried out. So that's something you're going to want to kind of be wary of. Like, I wouldn't allow a large amount to dry. I would allow a thin film to dry. I haven't seen that. I am watching Toradora for the first time. I can't believe I missed out on that in 2008. It's really cute. Okay, so that's lemon over cyan. That's magenta over cyan. So that's lemon over magenta. So I'm basically just doing like CMYK layering. That's cyan over magenta. That's lemon over black. Now, if you let them dry fully, as I noticed in this test here, they're not going to reactivate and lift. These have not dried 100%. We even have some that are still wet. So some of them are lifting, but that is not the usual use case. So you can do layering with these. All right, that's cyan over black. Let's do green over the red. Because we may be able to get a more saturated brown by optical blending, and that's when your eyes do the blending for you, even though you've put two distinct colors down on the paper. Then we will do yellow over it, and then we'll do cyan. And then we have purple. I need to refill the cyan. And as you see, it does make a mess. So you could, in a way, you could use these as travel watercolors. If you had dinky dips, you could put the colors you want to bring with you in a dinky dip and then bring that. But I would not say these are the most travel-friendly watercolors. I wouldn't say any liquid watercolors that I've found are particularly travel-friendly because a lot of them don't reconstitute from dry very well. So that's cyan over purple. Then we're going to do magenta over purple. That Rosetta is still not dry. I'm going to do yellow over green. And then I'll do magenta over green. We'll skip these two because they're not dry. Yes, a dinky dip is I've actually talked about them on this channel if anybody wants to grab a link and pop it in. But they're typically used by calligraphers and by inkers. They actually might have one handy. It's hiding under so much stuff. These are dinky dips. So they are little plastic pots with a screw lid. You could put a gasket on them to help make them even more leak resistant, evaporation resistant. But these themselves are called Dinky Dips, and they're sold through a site called Paper and Ink Arts, and I have no affiliation with them whatsoever. I just happen to really like Dinky Dips, and they're the only ones who sell them, and they're in Nashville, so you know, it's nice to support local businesses. You can also buy the wooden block holder, which will hold, depending, because Dinky Dips come in different sizes. This is like their medium size. They have a large size and they have a small size, and their holders are board out to hold the Dinky Dips. Now, if you have access to heavy woodworking equipment, you can make your own. I don't. I live in an apartment, so I am reliant on them for their purveyance of such fine quality materials, but you could make your own. And the holder just kind of keeps these little pots from spilling as you travel. And what's nice about these is that the ink stays liquid in them. And I'm noticing that a lot of these pigment-based watercolors don't reconstitute well. Like if you allowed them to dry in your ceramic palette and then re-added water, it wouldn't be the same as using a half pan or even a tube watercolor. They get really kind of gross and just bad. Not good. No bueno. So if you wanted to travel with these, having something like this might be more useful. Oh, that's awesome. Well, then you can make your own. I think Paper and Ink Arts is the only store I know of that sells them. Then finally we have ultramarine. So I'm going to do the scarlet, and then let's do the light green because we haven't really done anything with the light green yet. So again, there is some color smearing with some of these colors. I don't know how obvious that is. That's because these didn't get a chance to fully dry. As you guys can see over here, you can actually get really clean layers with them. Okay, so I have one more thing I want to do today, and it's going to require clean water. I have, and my camera is not going to pick it up. Let me see if I can get it. I have this little illustration of some palm trees at sunset. Thought I'd work on that with you guys as kind of like our final hurrah. And especially since some people have asked that I do an illustration along with the materials. Now, I'm gonna point out again, I do field test videos. They are separate from the initial unbox and swatch videos, and that's because the unbox and swatches can get really long. And the field tests, when I treat them like a tutorial, also get really long. And I don't want every piece of art I do on this channel to be a time lapse or a time lapse with no narration to it. So that's why I usually break them up, but I do see the benefit of having them in the same video as well. So I'm gonna go grab a clean cup of water and be right back. Well, if you can get the Hydrus watercolors, they're, I'd say comparable, if not a little bit better. They also have a larger color range, and they have the eyedropper already in the bottle, so they're a little bit easier to use as well. Okay, so I am running out of room. Do my best because I have a reference that I want to use, and I'm going to refill my colors while I'm thinking about it. Though I'm not going to use all my colors, so maybe I'll just put a token amount. Dang, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, there's things that you guys have that cost a lot more for us too. A lot of y'all student art supplies are sold as professional grade art supplies in the US for like a hefty markup. There's a few art supply manufacturers in the US that I think are really, really good, like Golden and Core, and then there's a bunch that are just crappy. So we import a lot of our art supplies, and everything is really much more expensive than it would be if I was in Japan or if I was in Germany. Yeah, isn't that a joke? Faber-Castell's expensive over here too. It's getting less because there's more market saturation, but Faber-Castell used to be really expensive here. That's why when people are like, I want to buy watercolors, and I'm always like, please don't buy Cotman. They're so much better than Cotman. Please don't buy Cotman. And they're like, no, I'm going to buy Cotman. And I'm just like, no! Infinite screeching noise, because it's like you could basically get a smaller set, but a much more useful set of Winsor & Newton. I'm looking for my black eyedropper, and I'm not seeing it. There it is. Winsor & Newton half pans. Oh, I got black all over the place. See, this is why having to use having to use standalone droppers with these is a huge pain in my butt. I guess they're just really expensive for you guys. I would say Core is not bad for the price. It's about $60 for the mini palette. I love that mini palette, by the way. And $60 does seem like a lot, but that's kind of standard for art supplies in the US. So you could buy the Cotman case and just replace it with Winsor & Newton. You could buy a used empty Cotman case probably on eBay or AliExpress, but don't. And just fill it with whatever you like. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I have a sun, and that's the only thing I want to mask. And I need to find my masking fluid so that I can do that. And see, Schminke is really expensive here, and it's really hard to come by. I haven't released it yet, but I have an unboxing swatch review, and I did the dot card, and I paid a premium for those Schminke watercolors. Where on earth is my masking fluid? It's gonna make me low-key angry. Masking fluid, y'all. Where are you? Alright, I gotta go dig because it is not where it usually lives. And I don't know where it is run off to. I don't know where I know where my masking fluid eraser is. This is just downright embarrassing, y'all. I can't tell you that. I have the video turned off for myself. Okay, so I don't know how many of you guys know how to apply masking fluid, so I'll just walk you guys through it, just in case you don't. I'm going to use a synthetic brush that I am not attached to, and I have here brush soap. You can also use bar soap or shampoo. And what we're doing is we're soaping it up because we're going to create a buffer between our brush fibers and the masking fluid. I apologize for that, y'all. You can get on Comcast for that. All right, so I dip it in. I mask the area I want to protect. I have 2 cups of water on the table, and the reason I have 2 cups of water on the table is one of them is going to be my rinse water. So I'm grabbing a scrap piece of paper, and I want this to be dry. Are you dry? You're dry enough. And I'm just going to flick maybe do it again. There we go. Okay, that's enough. I don't really like the chunky ones because they take a while to dry. Then we immediately wash our brush in clean water and wash our brush out in soap. And normally I would do that under running water, but I'm at a desk and I don't have a sink at my desk. So maybe I could use a dog fountain for that. Remove the thing I used as my masking implement. Recap my masking fluid. You really don't want to leave this uncovered, and you don't want to leave it in a hot area. And I'm going to allow this to dry for a few minutes, and I'm going to go dump my water, etc. Actually, I really need to get on Comcast for their internet quality here in Nashville because they're kind of a monopoly. And it's the beginning of the month, so I haven't used up my bandwidth. So these jumpiness issues are not really an acceptable thing. So I apologize for that. Oh, bad video settings. Well. Okay, so I'm waiting on this to dry. So I don't know. Because it's a live stream. Normally what I would do is I'd pause the video, go grab something to eat, and come back. But we're doing this live, so that's not really an option. I guess what we can do is we can kind of take another look over here where I did a little bit of color play between the graphics and the hydrous. And some of these areas we get like really, really beautiful sedimentation. I don't know if this is going to do it justice, but like some of the areas where we brought in their yellow are really, really nice. I feel like the graphics has a tendency to gray out and desaturate kind of quickly, but that could just be me. And when I do a full field test, I'll be able to give you guys a better opinion on that. I also like how really, really, really dark the hydrous can get. And I mean, these are not intended to be used at this saturation, but it definitely gives you a saturation to work towards. Whereas with the graphics, they kind of hit a point where you're not going to get any more saturated than that. And then over here, we have kind of the washout, swatch out test. So Up here we have it really thickly applied. It's so thick, in fact, that it's a little bit shiny on camera. So you can see how dark some of those colors can go. And then we have areas where I feel like the colors get desaturated as we blend them out. But I kind of feel that way about India ink products as well, like Bombay India ink or Inktense. I feel like they kind of lose their saturation. Yeah, I'm so jealous of you guys in East Nashville. I am so over Comcast. Yes, we definitely have data limits, but it's July 12th, you know, like. Okay. All right. So move this over here. There aren't data limit. Isn't that a data limit though? If they charge you extra for doing that, and then they throttle you anyway. Okay, so I'm gonna start with ultramarine blue because what I want to do is a sky gradient, and I'm gonna need a fresh, clean paper towel because we got to do this quick. And I'm painting again on Fluid 100 cotton rag watercolor paper. So I'm going to go from blue to purple to pink to orange. And since I'm doing orange, it would be wise if I went ahead and I pre-mixed myself an orange, because when you're doing wet into wet blends, you need to go fast, of course. And then I'm polluting my water. Wouldn't surprise me if they're not, so long as they're the monopoly in this part of Nashville. Why should they have to? Okay. All right, I think I am prepared. Oh boy, oh, that is an intense blue going straight down. Actually, if I'm smart, I'll let gravity be my friend. Okay, next I'm going to grab some purple. And I'm doing this on a pre-stretched block of watercolor paper. And the only thing I really don't like about this is that these edges on the pre-stretched, on the cheap pre-stretched watercolor blocks, they tend to grab the pigment and kind of hold on to it. They basically create this like buffer area, which I don't really like. Okay, then we wanted to do purple to pink, so you can see it doing it over there. And this was kind of inspired by one of my students in one of my comic classes in Louisiana. We were making zines, but we ended up going into watercolor instead, and mostly because that's what they wanted to do. And she wanted to paint a sunset, and I was trying to explain to her how to paint a beachy sunset, and with the time and materials limitations, we weren't really successful. That orange is not as orange as I would like. A lot of pink in it. We're also getting kind of banding in between. Let me add in some more yellow, and we'll do a band, a yellow orange kind of at the bottom. It's getting a little bit muddy though. And that's because I'm working with basically purple water right now. Do another layer of blue. Go into that purple. And do another stripe of magenta going down. And then I have like this outline at the beach that's not very, it's not very clean. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I do want to kind of, well, see, I really need to go change out my water. Okay. Okay, so that needs to dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of clean things up, change out my water, and give it a chance to dry. It might take a while though, so I'm sorry guys. Okay, so while I'm waiting for this to dry, do you guys have any questions that I can answer about the Marabu Ink Graphix watercolors? I have like all the hard deets in the description to the side. And those are kind of carryover from the last video, which I apologize for, that was awful. And I double check, like that's a frustrating thing, is before I delete the originals off my phone, I double check it. So I'm like, the only way I can see that I let that one slip is it was right before MTAC. So I must have just been, my head must have just been elsewhere. Now, some people like to take a hairdryer and thank you, Allie. To help it dry faster, I don't like doing it. I find that some brands it tends to dull the colors. I also just don't like the noise. And you guys can see where the color has slipped down the edge because it basically followed the track on the glue binding. So Fluid 100 watercolor pads are only bound on two sides, and unlike Arches where you can cut that glue off, it just kind of stays when you remove it and it leaves this edge. So that's something to be aware of. In general, though, I really do like this paper. I just don't like that trait of the paper. It's like watching paint dry. And I apologize if you guys hear my like channel trailer for a second. I'm going to go grab some of the other videos that I've mentioned, because I have a sunset tutorial from last year's there we go, from last year's World Watercolor Month. So I'm just going to pop those in while we're literally just watching paint dry. And these are all just like super duper basic videos, because I was just kind of trying to create some stuff that could fill that like very much new to watercolor gap. So these are all like super basic. And I'll pop a link in for the Hydrus unboxing as well. And this is actually me revisiting Hydrus because I had swatched them a while back and I never really made any progress with that. And I had acquired a bunch of colors between the first time I swatched it and recently, so I wanted to kind of redo it. I also really disliked them in the past, but I think it's because I was using them all wrong. I'm just kind of flipping through and looking for anything that might be relevant while we literally wait for paint to dry. Actually, I do want to give it a little bit longer. Especially up here where it's still wet. And it helps to, when you're painting or when you're allowing your paints to dry, you prop them up at an angle, especially if you're doing gradiated stuff, because it's going to allow gravity to do the work for you and pull the colors down into the other colors, so you're going to get smoother transitions. And working on a cotton rag paper, because cotton rag stays, it maintains the moisture longer. Cellulose paper, the moisture basically just stays on top and then it evaporates out, which is why it will dry faster. But cotton rag paper, it soaks it into the fibers and holds on to it. So if you're doing things like gradients where you want really soft blended transitions, cotton rag papers are really the way to go. I guess I'll try removing. I'll put it back up in a second. I just wanted to remove the sun. Ugh. This is a masking fluid pickup. It can also be used to pick up like rubber cement. So if you can't find it in your art supply store, you may be able to find it in your office supply store, although people don't really use rubber cement that much because rubber cement was more used for like doing mock-ups. People don't really do mock-ups by hand anymore. Okay, so next I want to paint this water kind of a light teal color. So got some water, got some cyan, got some, just gonna grab a little bit of green, mix it all together. And I left my masking fluid on the water. All right, I'm gonna let that dry. This is cool to the touch, which means it's technically still wet, but it's surface dry. And since I feel like I'm holding you guys hostage with this, even though y'all are totally free to leave whenever, I'm gonna go ahead in with the black and we're gonna start. So this is all in silhouette, which is why I didn't mask it. And if you were doing this at home, not on camera, I would really recommend you allow it to dry fully so the paper isn't rippled. That's going to make it a lot harder to paint on. And this is just a really simple technique. It's really easy to do. I've seen it done on a lot of channels. I like using it in comics because it can be really evocative. But every now and then I do like talking about something that's like just really easy to do and really accessible. Because sometimes you just want to paint something and have it look good like the first time you do it. It's a big thing when I teach kids and adults is sometimes they just want to like leave the class successful. They don't really care if they learned something. They want to like have made a thing and it look good. And I get that because like art can be frustrating, and when you're taking art in schools, there is a lot of frustration. There's a lot of failure. There's often a lot of competition, even if the teacher doesn't encourage competition. There's competition because you can't help but compare yourself to people you see as better. So like I feel like the invitation and the opportunity to make mistakes and fail and nobody laugh at you, like that's really important. That's how we learn. I mean, you guys saw how many ways I failed to make brown. I made lots of other colors, but I couldn't make brown. But sometimes you just want to do something successfully, and that's one of the reasons I think like painting with a twist is really popular. Is sometimes people just want to make art. Like they want to make something and it look good and they can put it up in their house, and when people come over they can be like, yeah, I did that. So I'm really starting to kind of come around to see the value of like making tutorials, making things that are like much more accessible to your average person. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, watching paint dry. Normally I would just time lapse it, cut it and time lapse it. Like people have requested that I do watercolor videos on this channel or watercolor streams, and I'm just like, I don't want to do that because it's gonna be super boring. You don't even know what you're asking for. You're gonna regret that. I'm gonna go in with a smaller brush and do the leaves. This is a Raphael Soft Aqua, and this thing does not hold a point. It's a synthetic. It holds a lot of paint, but it does not hold a point. I need to change that water out before we do anything with the sun. So as the paint evaporates, it definitely gets thicker, a little bit goopier, maybe a little more difficult to handle. I mean, that's going to be true of any liquid-based watercolor. So it's really just something to be aware of. So what's good about something like this is, other than nailing that sunset gradient when it comes to the sky, it's really hard to mess this up. And you could put whatever you want. It doesn't have to be palm trees and a hammock. I think that's just where my head's at. Okay, I'm done with that brush. That brush is not a good brush. Let me go dig up a better brush. So pros of these over, let's say, over the Hydrus, because the Hydrus, that's pretty commonly available in the US. You can find it at Plaza, you can find it at Jerry's, you can find it at Blick, you can find it on Amazon, you can find it Paper Ink Arts, like you can find them all kinds of places. You can even get it at Michael's. So the Graphix inks, they're cheaper. I think they're like $3 something a bottle, whereas Hydrus is like $5 to $6, depending on where you're getting it from. They're both pigment-based inks. You get more ink, or more, they're not inks, they're watercolors. You can use them as inks, but I would not put them in like a fountain pen or anything that is going to be prone to getting clogged, but you could use a brush to ink with it. They could be, both of them could be great for like brush calligraphy. Both have a lot of colors. So the Hydrus, you get a bigger bottle. Generally, they do have a smaller size available, but I have only seen that ever at Flax and online in the big sets. Both are available open stock and in sets. The Hydrus has a much larger line. Off the top of my head, I cannot tell you how many colors are in the Hydrus line, but in the Graphix line, there's 14 colors, and I know the Hydrus has a lot more than that. Hydrus also has several browns. They have like yellow ochre. They have colors that, if you are a watercolor artist who is already familiar with certain color names, you're going to recognize those names and you're probably going to know how to use them. So Hydrus can be appealing to people who are already watercolor artists because it's what we already know. Whereas the Graphix could be really appealing to people who are coming in from some other background because they come in really fun, bright colors. The bottles are really cute. I don't like that they don't come with their own dropper, and Dick Blick and the Art Snack Shop are kind of the only places I've seen them offered open stock. They're a little bit more scarce around here. The colors do seem more finely milled than Hydrus, so if you're looking for, if you don't like granulation, if you want something that's going to be a little bit more even of a wash, these could be a good fit for you. They are more granulating than Bombay India ink. I actually like the amount of granulation these have. And if you already have Hydrus watercolors and you would like more pigment-based watercolors to add to your collection, these could be a good way to kind of fill out some of the gaps. Now, Hydrus is definitely designed to be watered down a little bit, whereas I feel like Graphix could go either way. You could work at full saturation or you can water them down. It kind of depends on what you need. It's not an eraser. No, it's not an eraser at the end of the brush. It is a price sticker that I haven't removed because it's going to make it sticky. And I could use rubbing alcohol to remove some of that sticky, but the success rate for that is sometimes hit or miss. Okay, so I can remove the stars, and then I'm still waiting on the water to dry. So to remove the masking fluid, I'm being really, really gentle. I'm just kind of gently brushing the masking fluid pickup against the paper. I'm not like dragging it. It's not like I'm trying to erase it from the paper. I'm just trying to lift it up. This is attractive to the rubber or the latex in the masking fluid, so it's going to come up pretty easily. You shouldn't need to scrub it too much. Some people use their fingers. I don't know, like they can do that. I don't have much luck with it. Maybe Maybe I don't have the right kind of magic hands. I don't know. Also, like, the idea of rubbing my hands all over my art and getting like human oils all over my art is like gross and just gross to me. Okay, so we've got our little stars. It's kind of cute. Definitely got vacation vibes. Still waiting on this over here to dry. So I'm going to prop it back up. But as you guys can see, I mean, we're almost done with it, but it's really, really easy. I'm going to go change out the water and clean this up. Ugh. Still not dry. Well, I'll do all the things I tell y'all not to do. I'm going to go ahead and start lifting up. And see, I'm having trouble with it. And that's because I didn't let it dry fully. So, y'all are smart. Y'all will learn from my mistakes. You will make your own mistakes. But you will not make my mistakes. Oh, I really should not be pressing my hand up against the paper like that. See, so we got an even liftage. It's okay. That's all right. And I promise the colors are much more vibrant in person. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to take clean water, almost say clean wet water. Take clean wet water and brush it in. So we are getting some lifting. I guess that's where I didn't remove all the masking fluid. I need more yellow. And I want like a really saturated yellow in the sun, and I want it to like fade out into the water. So I'm trying to get all the evaporated goodness reconstituted. And you can do an orange sun. You can do a sun with orange in the center. Like, you know, it's up to you. And then I'm going to just start dabbing it into the water and let gravity do the rest. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the red, mix it with our yellow, a little more of the red. See, that's like my big complaint about these right now, is that as soon as it evaporates, it's really hard to get the color strength you used to have. So it doesn't reconstitute as well. And that's the problem with the Hydrus too. I'm going to put some orange here in the center of the sun. And I could refill my yellow, but I feel like that's a little bit wasteful, because I'm not doing too much with it after this. And then maybe a little bit of the red and just let it blend out. And I'm going to let that dry and then just do maybe a little bit more blue in where we have like the sun's reflection. You could add some white. It adheres to the paper pretty well. So like I can see the graphics inks being really good for like solid fills. If you want really intense color really quickly, you don't want to do a lot of mixing. The graphic part of graphics is very true. I feel like they definitely deliver a lot of graphic. Oh, the Raphael brush? Yeah, let me find it. It's just a sticker. For the same reason too, because it leaves like gross sticky on it. And sometimes I'll clean it off, and sometimes I will just leave it forever. So they do deliver like a lot of high impact color, and I know that some people, their big complaint about watercolors, they feel like watercolor is all pastel, and that is not the case at all. It just shows that like their experience with what they know of as watercolor is either coming from games where people refer to it as like a hand painted game, and it's like unless it's Atelier Cento, it is not a hand painted game. But all right, sure, what you mean is painterly. So it bothers me. Like I really hate when digital art is called watercolor, because it's like it can be digital watercolor, but it's doing watercolor on paper is difficult. And not that digital watercolor isn't also challenging, but it's challenging in a different way. I guess it's like calling I was gonna say like calling a hamburger a sandwich, but they are sandwiches. And since I talked about Atelier Cento, I will drop it in Atelier. Isn't it funny, words we never hear anyone pronounce in our real day-to-day lives, we make up a pronunciation for it. Anyway. They do actual hand-painted video games. But most video games are not going to be hand-painted, because that the requirements for animated something that is hand-painted watercolor is going to add so much time and expense to your project. Oh, so it either comes from people calling video games watercolor when they're not, or children's books that have like a very pastel aesthetic. But watercolor can deliver some really saturated color, and it's really just another medium. It doesn't necessarily dictate, wow, cannot talk. It does not necessarily dictate the style that the work is going to be in. Still waiting on that water. So it's not actually dry. What I would like to do is do some like little wave forms in the water. I mean, obviously in the water. Yes, they are awesome. They make really beautiful work. And they have a really cool Instagram too that has really beautiful work on it as well. And then maybe if you're feeling really like fancy, you can mix it a little bit darker. Whatever, it's up to you. It's your art. It's your piece. All right, I'm gonna call that done. That's done, right? That's done, y'all. All right, so I want to thank you guys. Well, I will clean up and thank you guys, and then we'll reassemble. I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me on a Friday afternoon. This stream went on for 2 hours and 30 minutes, so that was a significant chunk of time. I appreciate that you guys hung out with me anyway, and giving me kind of a second chance at the Marabu Graphics video. I really do apologize that the first one's quality was so bad.